Welcome. This is the first in a series of 4 classes called Uniqueness and Harmony. And Diane's going to start us off with a poem that she wrote.
So this is called Brilliant Mystery, and I'll send it to you all in the class here if you want to have a copy. I see now how to enter into the brilliant mystery. Hidden layers shining out, each of us reflecting the unity held close in every heart, the beloved of the other. The harmony rings out like a bell, tolling precious meaningfulness, echoing our deepest wish. We see now that harmony is beauty, the beauty of resonance, one with the other. Our viewpoint deepens our neighbor's wisdom, adding dimension and richness to the unfolding now.
So in the Sufi invocation that many of you are familiar with, but if you aren't, it starts off with toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty. And the love part and the beauty part tend to get a lot more airplay in people talking about spirituality, but harmony not usually so much. But Hazrat Inayat Khan was a great musician, and he greatly valued the importance of harmony. And when we hear this phrase in the invocation, toward the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, we might be thinking about, well, we're trying to get to a state where we can come to a place where now there's this perfection of harmony and love and beauty. But in actuality, what I think the deeper meaning of this is that we are called to help to bring about this harmony not only in our own being, but in the totality in which we're all a unique part of. So what do we need for harmony? It's got to start with our own being. And a lot of times in thinking about spirituality and spiritual paths and mysticism, we like the glamorous parts, we like the really spacey parts, we like the transcendent parts, and it's not so exciting to think about the fundamentals that are so important. But if we don't have those, the other parts will really just be an unrealized dream. We're not going to get to them. So in order to have harmony, it's got to start with our own self. And it's got to start on the very basic level of just our body, our mind, our emotions, and so on, and keeping things in balance, taking care of our needs, and recognizing when something is out of balance. Because otherwise we're really fooling ourselves if we think that we can just close our eyes and get to some wonderful transcendent place, and we're not taking care of our ability to function in the world and hopefully become a source of harmonizing in the world. But we can't really do that unless all the parts of ourself are taken care of. So spirituality, Pir Vilayat would talk about, we want to avoid the spiritual bypass. And what he meant by that was just not really wanting to pay much attention to what's going on in manifestation, to really wanting just to bliss out and rise above things where it's not an issue anymore because we kind of lose awareness of those things. But those things will come back and pull us down every time, so we need to take care of things that need addressing. So we're going to be talking about, throughout this series, different ways of starting with ourselves and finding inner harmony, finding the harmony of our physical, mental, and emotional self, and moving towards a harmony in our relationships and our ways of being in the world.
Okay, so this kind of echoes back to the poem, and I'll bring you in a different kind of way, thinking about some of these lines. So we're talking about entering into the brilliant mystery. So that was my introduction to thinking about, so what is harmony? And how is it that we can attain harmony? And different aspects of it, with harmony within, and then harmony with other beings, and especially harmony in terms of the spiritual realms. So I said, hidden layers shining out, each of us reflecting the unity held close in every heart, the beloved of the other. So what I'm saying is that we are speaking of a harmony that's not our, number one, is not us trying to harmonize with everything going on, what we think of as and on the outside, thinking that, well, there's something that has to change in me in order to be harmonious with what's going on there. There's actually a much more exciting way that it's going on, which has to do with the beings that are in our world, that they're not a separate being. Just like when we have classes in here, we find out we seem to have more in common than we have different, and we're bringing things out and helping each other in the class. So here's that second part. The harmony rings out like a bell tolling precious meaningfulness, echoing our deepest wish. So somehow those things that are significant to us and meaningful to us, and also things that we wish for, really are unfolding in the world around us. And as we, especially when we come together and all are thinking about that intention and coming from a deeper place, then we find out that things change without physical working them out sometimes. But the best part is that they change as a result of us intending and thinking about it, holding it in our hearts, and then physically working with it. We see now that harmony is beauty, the beauty of resonance one with the other. So resonance is a part of it. Certainly harmony and resonance go together, don't they? So if we're thinking about the resonance that we have with each other, and then we know that in our own lives too, that we have those that when we're with them, it seems to bring out the best in us. And then sometimes we're able to bring out the best in others. You know, so that kind of working together, that kind of resonance is an amazing beauty. And something that we can just cherish. And then finally, our viewpoint deepens our neighbor's wisdom, adding dimension and richness to the unfolding now. So this has to do with, often we feel that we are in some kind of a contest with somebody else. Often as partners, often in the work situations, just any kind of situation. It seems that, you know, we're try to make this part, the part that we are representing, come to fruition, and thinking, well, that's, you know, that's really something wonderful, and well, they're having their point of view also. So it's possible to really be focusing on the best that can come from that relationship, or helping that other person in different ways, and opening the possibilities for this other person, that adds dimension and richness to their contribution, which in turn brings our contribution in, to bring that unfolding now. So that's what I was talking about in this.
So here's something from Hazrat Inayat Khan. Why does a mystic give such great importance to harmony? Because for a mystic, his or her whole life is one continuous symphony of music, each soul contributing to the symphony by his or her particular part in the music. And then he says, one may ask what I mean by heaven. Heaven is the natural condition of life, but that only happens when we're able to really live in harmony. So, we live in an interconnected, deeply interconnected reality. And so I think an essential step in the process of awakening in spirituality is moving our frame of reference from one in which we feel separated from everything else. Separated from everything else in manifestation, separated from however we relate to God or the divine or the transcendent, and we're thinking this separated thing somehow is going to get evolved to a point where it reaches whatever we think of as the finish line. But it's not about that at all. And those of you who have been through previous classes that we've done, we talked about the notion that everything is in a state of evolution to a higher state of being. The whole universe is in this state of evolution, and even what we think of as God is evolving to a higher state, a possibility of relationship. So if we're trying to harmonize and we feel like, okay, we're part of this cosmic symphony, the music of which is the music of the spheres, well, if we were an instrument in an actual symphony, certainly we would want to be harmonizing with the music of the rest of the symphony, but we couldn't very well do that if our instrument was out of tune. So again, here's another part of spirituality that is not so exciting and dramatic, but is so vital and essential. And the Sufis talk a lot about the notion of attunement. Diane talked about resonance, coming into a state of resonance with our own being, recognizing when some part is out of balance and taking care of that, and not just trying to go, well, I'm not going to pay any attention to that. I'm going to just go and sit and meditate and get high, or just ignore that. Well, all of those parts are part of the reality of our being. And we've talked in previous classes about the fact that our frame of reference in life tends to be a simulation of the actuality of who we are and the world that we live in. We live in a constricted frame of reference, and we're trying to make everything turn out right from that constriction. But over and over again, we discover that that's impossible a lot of the time, and then we get frustrated. And so we try harder to do more of what's not working, when in fact what we need to do is discover the fact that we are beings who exist in, I have come to describe this as many vibrational states of being. The mystics talk about the subtle realms, the subtle planes, the angelic realm, the Jinn realm, and so on. We could call these just different vibrational states of being, all of which are present right here, but our perception is just narrowed down to a tiny slice. It's like we could only see one part of the visible light spectrum and couldn't see the rest of it, and the world would look pretty strange. So we want to move towards an opening where we can harmonize these different levels on which we exist. But again, we have to tend to the first story. This Pir Vilayat would call our bodies our spacesuits, which enable us to experience the conditions of a planet Earth. Well, we have to take care of these spacesuits. We have to recognize when we're not getting enough sleep, when we're not eating right, when we have some tension, and what's causing that tension. Is there an illness causing it? Is it related to stress? And so on. And consider dealing with those things every bit as important as any spiritual practice that we might be doing. So these are the kind of the raw ingredients which are necessary to be able to experience harmony, to come to a state of equilibrium.
Well, as you speak about that, it kind of reminds me of a visualization that I had this week when thinking about harmony. And it was as, like I was a peacock with all the different jewel-like pattern, you know, those beautiful spheres or something on their tail, I guess it mostly is. And then they have this head piece also. And that we kind of restrict our view of ourselves to this thing here, which is lovely to have, but we are so much more than that. If we could imagine ourselves as all of these different facets, when Hazrat was talking about these different parts of the person's being and everything, and working with those and encouraging and harmonizing these, I was thinking of those as those parts of us that almost like when we say the realms or something like that, that are always there, and we're working with them and on them. Let's say one of them is our musical ability, okay? Something you can't see. If I'm looking at somebody, if they're singing, and, you know, thinking about what they have done, it's not evident if I just look at their bodies, but there's this realm that they carry around, and then there's the artistic, and then there's caring about other people, and then maybe caring about your family, caring about all the different cares that you have, and all of these are parts of us that grow and change and hopefully affect each other, and then as we do things in the world, those are changed by that experience. So it's, you see how we can think about the different realms, as we call them, in complicated ways, or we can think about them in ways that make more sense, like a peacock. And then think about all these parts of ourselves being enriched and pleased and enjoying each other when they say, oh, look, music part of me is doing these things. And then that part of the other parts are all enjoying that. So I'm saying we're kind of, it'd be nice to try to live as multidimensional beings and have some kind of fun analogy to think about how that might be. So you end up pleasing yourself and enjoying the story. As human beings, we have that challenge and that ability.
So here's a few more quotes from Hazrat Inayat Khan. Beauty is born of harmony. What is harmony? Harmony is right proportion, in other words, right rhythm. And what is life? And I love this. Life is the outcome of harmony. At the back of the whole creation is harmony, and the whole secret of creation is harmony. Intelligence longs to attain to the perfection of harmony. So the mystics talk about, prior to consciousness, or more fundamental than consciousness, is intelligence. Intelligence is consciousness without an object, but there's a purpose to existence. And we've talked about, Sufis say that God was a hidden treasure desiring to be known, to love, and to be loved. It could only do that by the relationship with what takes place in manifestation, and ultimately a longing for there to be harmony and beauty in that expression. So imagine this divine being having this longing to be able to experience a greater and greater perfection of beauty and love and harmony reflected back to that divine being in a way that was previously unknown to the divine by all that takes place. And we're the cast of characters that helps to bring that about.
We're the little dots on that big peacock.
So, the music of life shows its melody and harmony in our daily experiences. So again, we tend to look for drama. You know, we love to have mystical experiences. They are wonderful. I mean, they're priceless, but that's not the point of spirituality. The point of spirituality, as Hazrat Inayat Khan describes it, is to become a natural human being. And a natural human being is a far cry from the way that most people in the world live their lives, just because they're living in this constricted vantage point, and the rhythms of the world are so unnatural, they're so out of balance, they're so speeded up. So part of harmonizing is to find the proper rhythm to relate to a certain situation or an activity that we're engaged in. And it also has just to do with our environment. And we start with our home environment. I mean, if our house was just a total mess and whatever, we might think, what's the difference? Nobody's going to see this anyway. But that has an impact on us. And if we straighten things up and make things beautiful around us, that has a very positive effect on our own being. And it has an effect on what we bring, you could say, our vibes when we go out in the world.
Can I come in here?
Sure.
Because I was just about to say something like that. So we have a lady that cleans our house. It's like we really amazing, you know, put our money out in such a way, and she helps us, and then we kind of have more energy for other things. Anyways, Gloria, I sing Gloria, Gloria, Gloria to Gloria. She's wonderful. And I came and I told her, I decided I was going to tell her spiritually what I perceived that she is doing in our home. And I don't know if it came across or not, but I tried. So I said, like every action that you put into cleaning this, and opening the drawers or closing the drawers and putting this on this side and putting all those things here and then putting them back over here, and all those times that you've done this, I thought, well, maybe I can make it, it's like a dance, I said, but it's like this dance that everybody is so joyful. It affects everyone when you do this. And she was looking at me kind of like, are they all going to pay me too? Or I don't know. But I don't know if she got it or not, but hopefully she sees how jubilant I am about what she does in her home, and it's not only getting the dust off of things. And we should remember that too.
So here's some more from Hazrat Khan. If there's a way of making life easy for ourselves, it is only by harmonizing within ourselves so that we can harmonize with all the different conditions and experiences of life. So if spirituality is to be of any value, this is it. This is what it's about, to harmonize with whatever comes our way. And that doesn't mean everything's going to be good. We may have trauma, sadness, loss, illness, great difficulty, but if we can find a way of harmonizing even with that, then something opens up not only in ourselves, but in the world around us. So he goes on to say, the most essential thing, therefore, is to harmonize in such a way that by centralizing our thought within ourselves, by finding our real self, the future may become harmonized. So an image I have of this is like we're creating a forward-moving wave that goes into what is manifest in future times that have not yet arrived from our frame of reference, but we're laying a template for that to come out in a way that is harmonized, that is beautiful. I mean, we're just not just clearing away the clutter on the road, but it's like the highway ahead now has been made smooth. The Sufis, there's a wazifa, sacred name, Khani, Ghani, which means making the way smooth. And there's a tradition of the Sufis, especially if they live in mountainous areas, of taking the stones off the path to make the way smooth for people that follow them. So imagine living your life in a way where it becomes natural, that your just way of being is not only making things easier for you, but it's making things easier and more harmonious for all those around you. And imagine more and more people living in this way, how the world can really change in a really wonderful way. So here, again, is a purpose for spiritual awakening far beyond just, well, I want to get enlightened, I want to get illuminated. But again, it's coming from this thought of, I'm this separate self over here wanting to get someplace, as opposed to recognizing that each of us is a unique expression of the divine being, awakening to its own being in life in a way that can only come through us. And hence the title of this series, Uniqueness and Harmony. So the kind of harmony that comes from each of us has a different flavor to it than the kind of harmony that might come from someone else, but it all harmonizes together.
Mm-hmm. So when you're speaking about harmonizing with what's around us, at the very beginning when Hazrat brought up this idea of speaking of harmony, I wasn't really that into it, because I was thinking, that's something that I often have to fight against, that I try to fit in to what's out here, and that whatever's going on over here, I need to really adjust that so that I don't make waves, or, you know what I'm saying? Just to be okay about the things that are happening out here. But as I read more and we talked more, and I had some realizations and even interactions where I would say, well, this would be good if this were changed, then I think that would be great. So I'm thinking of some ways that to adjust what is on what I think of as the outside, or this part of my realm. And if that were changed, then this little Diane can enter in and really enjoy. So it's not having to change this. It's sometimes the whole view, the whole interactive, resonant group. You see what I'm saying? Do you want to say anything here?
I do see what you're saying,
Please.
and I'm in the throes of trying to, I do hear what you're saying, and I'm in the throes of trying to find that harmony in my own home. And funny enough, the first thing I do whenever I feel really out of balance is clean my house. It's my house outside and my house inside. I've done that for years, and it's effective. But sometimes I would want to remove that stone so that others could follow, but then the other that's following wants to put a boulder in there because they have a four-wheel drive car with these huge tires and they like the rough road. So I would try to move it aside a little bit, but they want it really right dead center. And frankly, my harmony is disrupted when that frequently happens.
Mm-hmm.
So then where do I go?
Well,
I
I'm
go
going
to
to...
meditation.
Okay, hey.
But where would I go?
Okay,
I can't
well,
change that.
I'll say what I tried because I talked to Don. So I talked to my partner and I told him some things that sometimes, actually with encouragement from Peer Zia, because in the last working retreat that he did with leaders, he spoke about that sometimes people see things differently, and that that it is a great, we feel like we have a really good answer, we have a good idea, and so we try to bring it, and then we get something on the other side, and then we try harder and we push, and then we think, well, I'm going to meditate on it and just bring my power up and make it happen. And he's saying that often we forget about seeing the other point of view and really seeing it from the other person's eyes. And, so I thought, well, let's try it with our relationship. And so I brought up something that, I wish I could even remember a specific incident right now where I asked you, I've asked you some things recently. I don't know if you can remember, but I said that if this were changed, or if you have some other ideas, because I know, sometimes watching TV, where it's a show where there's a lot of fighting in it, and I really don't like that part, and even if it was some fighting, but then there's some people with these positive abilities that they have, then that would be okay if it was like that. So we found that there's a discussion. If there's a discussion about it, then we can come to an agreement about it. And especially knowing that he's on a spiritual path too. and he's, and that it helps compassion of the other person to listen to me. It would be helping his compassion to listen to my point of view, so that it'd be good for him also. So I don't know, it came to be a story that we both could get things from it. And it takes more work, right? But it's not a dead end that way. And it's like a possibility. Go ahead.
So it's a good place to chime in with something I've talked about in previous series that I call relational unity. So usually we think the only choices on the menu of life are duality, which is our default setting. I'm separate from what I experience, I'm separate from you, I'm separate from whoever I'm talking to. And the other one in spirituality is unity, where there's no more me. I've dissolved into whatever you want to call God, the oneness, the totality, nirvana.
Giving up your will to...
Well, you're either separated or you're gone. But there's an in-between state called relational unity, in which we very much maintain and affirm our uniqueness, but our experience in our relationship, let's say with another person, is not one of separation, but more of circulation, feeling a circulation of light between ourselves and let's say the person that we're interacting with. And so now there's a permeability here. And the Sufis say when there's two presences in alignment like that, a third presence arises. And I'm sure everyone here and everyone listening to this recording later on has had the experience of talking with a good friend. And after a while, maybe you start off just talking about some mundane things, but after a while, you get really inspired and you find yourself saying some things that you never had thought of before, that neither one of you had ever thought of before, that neither one of you would have ever thought of before, just isolated on your own. But it's coming about through the circulation of both of your beings with each other. And out of this comes an opening for a solution to a problem that you weren't going to get to by butting heads. And it's not, if you thought your only choice was bulldoze or capitulate, well, that's not too good either. But this is like coming together and finding a place where the harmony takes place. And so in music, you can have two notes. If you just play them by themselves, it's dissonant. But if you add in a third note, now you have a kind of a chord, and now it's not dissonant anymore. But you need that third note to take place. You need that presence that emerges in that way of relationship. So we can aspire towards a way of being in the world with whatever we're encountering, whether it's people, whether it's nature, circumstances, situations where we have this openness, this maintaining of our uniqueness, but this resonance that takes place where now there's an opening to discover something. And I've said many times before that every situation without exception is potentially a portal, an opening to the sacred. Everything. And it doesn't mean the situation is might be a horrible situation, but something can open up in that situation by our way of relationship with it. So harmony internally comes about by our taking care of balancing and adjusting rhythms of our own being and the different parts of ourselves, but in life it comes about modulating our way of relationship with whatever it is that we're experiencing.
And so as we transform, you keep going on the spiritual path, and it'll be easier for us to be able to see like the other person's point of view and to find the little clue. You go, oh, here's something right here. This might be our way of unifying our intention. And so, just having that confidence and keeping going with that, but also noticing those different things. And I wanted to share something with you from, some of you have been looking up Wahiduddin's web in order to find Hazrat Inayat Khan's work. And if you haven't and want to talk to me about it, please do. But the man who has done all this amazing work, putting Hazrat Inayat Khan's works in there, is Richard Shellquist is his name, and Wahiduddin is his spiritual name. But he also had some fabulous writing himself, and this is from a section on harmony that he took a lot of quotes from Hazrat Inayat Khan, but he wrote some too. And there are three things that I wanted to mention to you. In order to discover the calm, clear, loving, supportive, let me do it again, discovery of the calm, clear, loving, supportive depths within that we have. So what are the things that would be helpful to that? First is something all of you are going to recognize, looking to nature's beauty. We see that we are part of that wonder, that we are included in it. It's not just, oh, that stuff out there, that we are part of that whole wonder of nature. Sure. And a quote from Hazrat Inayat Khan, recognize that one which is hiding behind it all, seeing the one in all things and in all beings. So this would be like, this is one of three different exercises you might try between now and our next get-together. is go out into nature and think about that, just seeing that oneness that's in everything, including in us. And then you might have a little surprise, like the bird on the wire might do something and go, I know how I'm going to talk to my husband about that. I don't know, it happens. And then finding the divine presence by embodying your highest ideals. Okay, so that it means like we have different goals that we'd like to be more this or that, or we have the spiritual names that we're given to work with in our spiritual practice. We think, wow, I'd like to be more like this. Well, in order to, and by doing this, you are embodying those highest ideals, and you start to kind of feel it in you. You start to feel that that quality of the divine that's really in you and is working. And you start to bubble up and feel that. So that's the second one, by taking it into your life and trying these different things. And then the final, which is really key, and here's a quote from Rumi: there is no rest but in that place where you are one with God, when you are alone with God. And to get into meditation, and however that you like to do that, and be at one in that place. But then the answers do come. And then, but it's got to be a back and forth into the inner realization, trying on these different possibilities in the names, and then, being in the world. And a human being, it's really a task to be that, but that's what we're asked to do.
So now I'd like to segue into something we've talked about in the past, the idea of fana, F-A-N-A, which means, the old translation or traditional is annihilation, but I think a better, more palatable translation is a letting go of old forms in order that something new can emerge to a higher state of being. So, talking about harmony, Sufis talk about maqam. Maqam, M-A-Q-A-M, is your station. It's kind of like your station in life, the lessons that you're going through and learning, and we can look back in our life and think about different periods of our life where there were life lessons to be learned. Some of them may have lasted many, many years. But when we finish the business of a maqam, it's time to go on to the next one, but it's not a linear, continuous process, just walking up some staircase. There's a discontinuity there. And what is that discontinuity? The discontinuity is the in-between time when things appear to be chaotic, when you really don't know what's going to emerge from that. And our tendency is to try to cling to the previous way of being. But the more we do that, the nature and the power of the soul towards growth is going to overwhelm that. But things will get more and more chaotic, disruptive in our life the more we try to do that. But if we're able to release that and recognize, okay, this is the time for kind of hatching, incubating, and I'm not sure what's coming, but I have a trust that I'm moving towards a higher state of being in my life. So the point of my bringing this up is, let's say you had come to a way of being in circumstances that was very harmonious with the maqam that you were in, but now it's time to move on to another one, and things are getting bumpy. So you're trying to do more of what.
Could that be like a new job situation or a new?
Well, it could be, but it could just be not. I mean, it could be triggered by a trauma or something like that, but not necessarily. It could be just your own growth. So the point is, if you're trying to harmonize with your way of being that worked before and it's not working anymore, it's necessary to go through this in-between state in which you're not going to be experiencing harmony in a way that was there before. But if you have this trust and this confidence that something is growing within you, so like if you were turned into the consciousness of a seed for a rose plant, and now the seed is under the ground, and it's starting to stir, and it's moving up towards the sun, and you don't know what's going to happen or what you're going to become, but there's something in you that knows this is good, this is what's meant to be, and now you blossom into this rose. That's the baka. That's the transformation into the, sometimes translated as resurrection, what becomes from that experience. So I'm bringing this up because harmony is not, in our own spiritual journey, is not necessarily going to be this continuous thing. There are going to be periods of disruption and uncertainty, but if we can recognize those, then we can allow things to, like I said, incubate, to help bring us to a state of being that when we emerge into the next station, the next makam, the next stage of openness and awakening of our being, now we're able to harmonize with that in a different way that was beyond what we were capable of doing before. So,
Well, how about a meditation?
yeah, so why don't we do a meditation on harmony? Oh, before we do a meditation, there's a wonderful, simple practice that you can take with you. And this is a word, fazl, F-A-Z-L, and it just means harmony. And the idea is to imagine like if you strike a gong and the reverberation, is very harmonious. So when we do this practice, you want to find your own pitch when you're doing the ah part of this. Put your hand on your chest and go like this. I'm going to do an ah, but don't have it be like in your throat like ah, but ah. You should feel your chest vibrate. So do that. Ah. Okay, can you all feel that? It doesn't have to be the same note. So as we do this practice, we're going to repeat vaz, vaz, and breathe when you need to. We'll do it together. And what happens after a while, the consonants kind of blend together. It almost becomes like a V, like vaz, vaz. Okay, so listen to me and then just join in. And we'll do it slowly and just allow yourself to feel the effect of this vibration on your own being, on our connection with each other, on the energy of the room, and even the vibration that spreads throughout the building into the city and so on from our doing this together. So listen to me and then I'll have you join in a moment. Join. Keep your eyes closed and feel how this vibration, these sounds are continuing to resonate in you. And imagine yourself as this amazing musical instrument. And you're going to, in this meditation, we're going to tune our instrument. But this instrument has just many, many different levels of tuning. It's not just as simple as the strings on a guitar. And you don't even have to try to visualize what these different ways are. You could just put your intention out. So we're going to start with our physical self. And imagine that there are sounds that emanate from the different parts of your body, and if there's any place in your body that is hurting or stressful or numb, imagine now just through your gentle intention, you're going to allow that part to come to resonate in its own natural pitch in harmony with the rest of your being. So take a little time to do that, and when you have one area taken care of, then move on to another if there's another, until you come to a state where all the aspects of your physical being are resonating with each other. Now continuing to allow this resonance in your physical being to continue, move on to the realm of your mind and your thoughts. And notice how thoughts may arise, move through your mind. Some of them you tend to latch on to, others just pass by. And if you come across any pattern of thoughts that are worrisome or upsetting, or just chattery, just do that same process and imagine now that your mind is like part of this wonderful musical instrument, and you can bring it into harmony and resonance. So instead of some pattern of thoughts that's worrisome now, it's been tuned to, it fits into just your sense of well-being without any particular words that go with it. And your mind begins to feel more open and more peaceful. And now move on to your heart, to your emotions. And notice if there are any emotions tugging at you. Could be sadness, could be feelings of upset. And imagine your heart now as part of this amazing, beautiful musical instrument of your being. And you're allowing those emotions now to blend into the beautiful vibration of your heart. It has many notes with it, many pitches and frequencies, but all just expressing beauty, open heart. A heart that is full of compassion, compassion not only for others but for yourself, for these wounded places within. Now move on to the spiritual aspect of your being. Your relationship with the divine, however it seems to be to you, to God, to the beloved, to the one. And become aware of any places that cause a sense of separation, disconnection, which could even include feelings of unworthiness, guilt. But now you're allowing this connection, which is the deepest aspect of your being. You are an expression of this divine, that you are in a never-ending relationship within, in your inner life and in your outer life. So let any dissonant notes in there come into resonance. And become part of a symphony, some of the notes seeming to descend from the divine to your manifest self, but then others, variations on a theme that you return to the divine, that you've transformed, that the divine delights in experiencing in a way unique to you. Now that you've brought your multidimensional instrument, your multidimensional being into harmony, you can take your place in the divine never-ending symphony, contributing your own unique rhythm and song, and participating in what you receive from everything else, whether it's in a relationship with one person or with the world as a whole or with the universe, with the angels. And now the music of the spheres is always becoming more and more beautiful and more harmonious. And you are an active and priceless contributor toward the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty.